Welcome to Charmed Life, a radio show discussing spirituality, magic, and the unconditional love of the universe. Thanks for tuning in. And I am your host, Tricia Carr. Welcome to today's episode. I'm so excited. I had to ground myself in order to start today. But before I bring into the conversation my amazing in-studio guest, let me tell you about two things. One is the Intuitive Intensive. That is the 12-week program that I am teaching with my amazing friend, Crystal Ann Compton. It starts mid-March, and you can still register. So go sign up. It is an 8-week immersive education, 4 weeks of group coaching, community, groundbreaking material, and experience. So go check it out. That is the link for it is in the description? Yeah, in the show notes, the description. Go check it out, but you can find it at learn.lightworkerslab.com/2019II for Intuitive Intensive. And also, my Mystic Arts Academy is in full swing. I am doing both online, meaning remote students, as well as in person in Los Angeles, specifically Burbank. So go check it out on my website. You can find it Mystic Arts Academy, or you can go to triciacarcharm.com/calendar, and you can find all of the stuff that I'm doing, including the upcoming episodes of Charmed Life. So, one more thing I want to remind you that if you watch this on YouTube, thank you so much. It's youtube.com/Tricia Carr. And if you watch it on YouTube, you can also listen to it as a podcast by searching Charmed Life with Tricia Carr. I would love it if you would like, subscribe, share, and comment. And actually, you can watch it on a broadcast window on my website now to make it easier for folks. So just go to my website and go to podcast and media, and you'll find a broadcast window there to watch it live or even the replay. And one last thing, I guess, that was like one last things. But the very last thing is hello to the Lightworkers Lab, the online spiritual community of which I am a guide and a teacher, founded by that chick I talked about a minute ago, Crystal Ann Compton. You can find us on Facebook as a group. Join the Lightworkers Lab for free resources, all kinds of teaching, all kinds of fellowship. I would love to have you there. And without further delay, I am so excited to welcome into studio David Gandelman. He is a spiritual teacher, intuitive, and host of the amazing podcast Energy Matters. Welcome, David.
Hello.
Did I say your name right?
Yeah,
I wasn't even paying attention.
Said it right.
It's pretty easy to pronounce, I guess.
Absolutely.
Wow, I'm really, you guys, if you don't know Energy Matters, but a lot of my listeners do, because every now and again on social media, someone's like, "What's a good podcast?" And usually people are mentioning yours.
Oh, awesome.
Yours and
Thank
Cody's.
you.
So,
and I just wanted to start by saying thank you to your assistant, Olivia. It was amazing. It was like, David, you got to get on Tricia's show, and connected us. She's awesome. So shout out to you.
Oh, she's over there in the corner. That's why we're looking over there.
she's
Say hello.
Glowing.
You're welcome. I'm really excited for this podcast.
Olivia is amazing. She is an animal communicator. She's an intuitive healer. She is a teacher. She's going to be teaching a breathwork class out of my Burbank studio soon.
Awesome. I didn't know that. I'm coming.
Oh, come. Yeah. It'll be so fun. Yeah, I'm really excited about that because I need that very, very much. Cool. Actually, I was a bartender before, and like for years. And
Awesome.
One time we had a physiologist come in and like assess how we stir and shake, like our technique and everything. And he stopped me and he's like, "You hold your breath while you shake and stir," which is what you do 90% of the time while you're bartending. So for about 8 to 12 hours a day, I just held my breath.
Why do you have to hold your breath?
You don't. You shouldn't.
Oh, you shouldn't.
It's like holding your breath while you do sit-ups or something.
Or yoga,
it's the worst. Yeah. Anyway, back to you.
I used to be a party tour guide in Spain, so I
wow.
had my day behind
Did you
the
hold
bar
your breath
too.
the whole time?
I probably held it too much. Yeah.
You were a party tour guide? Like what kind of
So I
party?
ran bar calls. So I'd have like 50, 100 people a night, and I would walk them bar to bar to bar, get them totally wasted, and take them dancing till like 4 a.m. And I did that 3 nights a week for a year in Spain. It was crazy.
That's that's like bartending on a million. Like
I
times
haven't
a million.
really drank since, honestly. It was like I just took
You
it
got
to
your fill.
I got my fill, and I was like, thank you, Spain. And I moved on.
Too many G&Ts.
I'm like, I'm going to go do some spiritual stuff in the Himalayas now.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
Well, it's funny. So we should get to the spiritual stuff, but I am a mixologist, and I've been to all around the world to distilleries and learned so much about cocktails as a culinary art. But I don't drink cocktails.
I was going to say, did you have any this morning?
No, I don't drink cocktails because they're too sweet for me.
Wow.
Yeah.
You're just a master at mixing them.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I don't know. I guess people would say I was like a skinny chef because I didn't really drink them. I taste them.
We're going to have to have a cocktail party one night.
I'm already tired. I don't want to. We'll have a bar crawl night too, and you'll take us around.
All right, it's the first spiritual journey we're going to do together. We're going to have some drinks with Tricia Carr and David. We're going to do a bar crawl through Burbank, and it'll be awesome.
Oh yeah, the amazing bars in Burbank. But there's like P.F. Chang's and I don't know. Anyway, okay, wait, let's get to you though. So
Sure.
we have the Spain party crawl guy, but you have an amazing journey, amazing history too, because since you were quite young, you had your spiritual awakening quite young, right?
When I was 16.
Yeah. How'd that work out for you?
Well, it's still working out. We'll see. It's definitely shaped my career, obviously, and I'm a teacher now. But essentially, my brother came home from college. He was experimenting with drugs, I think like acid. Mom, don't listen to this. And he was like, you never read any books. You need to read some books. And he dragged me to the bookstore. And I don't know if I ever read an entire book. I just wasn't into it. I was a hockey player. And I just picked up the first book I saw. It happened to be The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, of course.
That's my book.
Yeah.
That's the one that woke me up too.
Amazing.
I said you read it when you were 16?
16. It was the year
That's
2000.
insane.
It was October. It was the night of the Mets-Yankees World Series.
I remember it well.
Yeah, and we had season tickets, but
That's
not to
sarcasm.
that game. And I'll never forget that night. I was just sat down, I started reading it, and just something in me completely shifted. It was
And
like
you
a whole
understood
nother-
it though?
I did. And just another part of me woke up. I would just sit and meditate for hours every day.
Wow.
And my parents would be like, what is he doing up there all the time? Why is he sitting in his room reading books, meditating? It was just my whole life shifted after that. But of course, I still played ice hockey. I went to college. I went to Spain to be a party tour guide. And then after Spain, I went to the Himalayas and searching, definitely as a seeker. Moved into an ashram, shaved my head, had books stacked to the ceiling, every book you can imagine on spirituality, and I was there for over a year, just doing my thing. And one day, and this will kind of, I guess, lead into what I do now. One day, this friend was like, "Hey, would you like an intuitive reading?" And I was like, blah, 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 blah. I've never heard of that.
Wow.
And I had a fancy degree in philosophy. I thought I knew everything about spirituality. And I was like, sure, I'll have one. So we were sitting on these cushions in a restaurant overlooking the Ganges River in the Himalayas. And this woman closed her eyes. And I mean, Tricia, I don't have to tell you how it works, but maybe for some of you who don't know, I don't even know how it works sometimes, and I do it for a living. But she closed her eyes and she just started communicating to me what she saw in me. And it was so accurate. But it wasn't just accurate. It was like she saw a part of me that nobody had ever seen or validated before. So she was just validating this deep, deep part of me. And afterwards, I went back to my ashram room. I laid down, and for like 2 days, I couldn't get up.
Wow.
It was like icebergs of energy were just melting off of me, of just old pain that I didn't even know I had, and stuckness. And when I finally got up, I went back to her, and I was like, "You witch, what did you do to me? How did you do that? I thought I knew everything. I have this fancy degree in philosophy. I read all of these books. I've meditated for a gazillion hours, and I've never seen that.
Wow.
Never seen that. So how did you do that?" And she was like, "Well, I learned at this school in Hawaii. So I literally bought a plane ticket with no money. I think I had like $200, something crazy low in my bank account. I moved to Hawaii. I got out of the airport. I had nowhere to stay. I hitchhiked out of the airport.
Wait, how old are you at this point?
25, maybe 26.
Okay. Yeah.
I hitchhike out of the airport. Some big Hawaiian guy picks me up and he goes, "Where you go, brudda?" And I was like, "I don't know, brudda." He goes, "I take you, brudda." So he dropped me off at a hostel. I made my way. I found a way to pay my tuition. I worked on farms. I lived in tents, like whatever it took at the beginning. And I just trained for years. And I spent 7 years sitting in a chair with my eyes closed, doing thousands of readings and healing work, and just learning deep meditation tools, and eventually teaching, becoming the director of the school.
Wow.
And so that was my journey into the kind of healing and intuitive arts. And the whole way I was in resistance, like, I'm never going to be a healer. I'm never going to be an intuitive. I'm not, that's like for other people who have cats or cups with cats that say I do what I want with the middle finger. I don't know if you can see cats holding up his middle finger.
Yeah, in my cup.
And it just happened, it just kind of happened over time. I just deepened into this path. And I'll finish up this story. the last thing I want to mention, Olivia and I were talking about it before the show. I sent an email out this morning talking about this experience of mine where I was running this nonprofit school, this spiritual school, and I put like every inch of my heart into it. I loved it. I loved all the people. It was such a community, but there was never enough money, and the rent was always high, and it was always a struggle to get students, and it was like we couldn't seem to get ahead no matter what we did. And I realized it was like nobody had any business skill. Everyone was a healer.
Yeah.
And for those of you listening who are healers, and you're like, why isn't my healing business working? I'm trying to do this thing and I don't have enough clients. Or how do you set up a website? You know, how do you do that cool podcast that Tricia does and everyone listens? How did you get all that? So I went to town and I started learning a second skill set, which was entrepreneurship.
And so this is another awakening you're talking about. This
awakening.
is your third awakening.
Yeah, that's
now you're awakening to the
idea that, you know, you need money
commerce,
to eat.
basically,
Yeah.
I guess.
I lived in a tent. I lived in a tent for 3 months.
Sounds pretty awesome, though.
Yeah, it was cool.
Yeah.
But as you get older, you're like, all right, the tent hurts. It hurts my back.
yeah.
So I started just eating up books on business and product development and marketing and like, how do you even put something on the internet? And I slowly taught myself and then just started my own practice and teaching and podcast, and long story short, kind of here we are.
But you were teaching a class on spiritual entrepreneurship, is that right?
I am
That's what you
going
told
to
me
be
before.
teaching one this Thursday, actually.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And but online access, is that right?
Online is free.
Tell folks about it.
Yeah, it's called the Energetics of Entrepreneurship. So if you just get on my newsletter, it's not even on my website yet, but so if you get on my newsletter, I'll send you a link to it.
Okay, we need to put a link to your newsletter, to join your newsletter
it's just
in
on my
the show
site.
notes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Or go to your site.
yeah. So you know what? This is like honestly, this podcast, this is a coming out party for me. This really is, because I've been hiding this part a little bit. I've been doing consulting for a while now. I help people who work in wellness and spirituality scale their businesses online because I just like it.
Yeah.
Like I love taking someone and being like, what do you want to do? And they're like, I want to be an animal communicator.
Yeah.
I want to be a medium. I want to be a Pilates teacher. And I want to scale it online. I'm like, great. So you want to work from home. You want to be free. You want to create. They're like, yes. And then they don't have the tools or the skill sets to do it. And then I develop that with them.
Right.
Which obviously I'm still developing, but I find it
endless.
fascinating. Yeah, it's endless. And it's so creative. It's just such a creative process to be like, what do I want to put out there? And a lot of people hit this energy of like, I don't want to be seen. You know, I don't want to be seen.
Right.
And going back to that intuitive reading that I had in the Himalayas, what did she do? She was seeing me. She was seeing me for who I was.
Yeah.
For the first time, I think in my whole life, somebody saw me in that way. And it was definitely a second awakening of like, whoa, that's possible. That somebody can see what's on the inside of you. I thought the only way that was possible was when you get drunk with a girl at a party tour guide bar crawl thing. And right? Like, I thought the only way someone could see inside you was when you fall in love. And that, I think, is the only way most people know that, like, you get in love with somebody and then they could maybe see part of you. But really, we can all see each other in that deep way. So the way I like to think of it is like we have two eyes to see out, the physical world, and then we have that sees matter, everything made of matter. And then we have one eye that sees inwards and can see into ourselves and into others, see other people's energy, their emotion, their soul, essence, whatever it is that you want to call it. And I never would have believed that in a million years if I didn't have the experience myself and then begin training and doing it for myself.
Right.
And so when you get seen in that way, it's such an awakening. And then on the as oddly as this sounds, like on the business end or like getting online, that's a whole nother aspect for people because then everyone has to see you. And then you're like, how do I share myself authentically and not be like this fake Instagram, like, look at my bum now, sign up for my newsletter. You know, like how do I authentically share myself in the world? And that's not that easy to do.
It's not easy. Like the literal like technology figuring it out is not easy. And how do I start it? Or at least it's maybe it's easy, but it is actually easy in a lot of ways. Everything is user friendly, but it's complex. There's a lot of things, I would say, right?
And not everyone is apt in that direction. Like some people are, and some people aren't. But what I always like to say is like, you don't have to be good at everything. You're not the plumber and the carpenter and the electrician. Like, find people who are good at things and get them to help you.
Yes.
And you focus on what you're good at. And
You're just channeling one of my guides there right now.
Tricia, get up earlier.
They keep telling me like, get help. And I was like, I'm trying. I don't know.
Help.
I don't have
Tricia,
time
get
to
help.
yeah. Yeah. But
My
no, like,
cats are saying
exactly. Delegate, and, helpers and
Yes.
everything. And I'm like, okay. But that seems like also complex to do.
I have had, Tricia, it is. I've had some amazing people on my podcast guests, and I hope you come on the podcast.
Oh,
please.
my goodness.
Yeah.
Don't try and stop me.
Okay. You're coming on. And I've had some amazing guests who, like, super just incredible spiritual beings. And even that, we'll have this conversation after. They're like, how did you make your website? Or like, how did you do all this?
Yeah, I know.
I'm like, you have that question?
Totally.
Oh my God.
Or someone who, and like I'm not going to say who this is, but like an author who's been on my show who I really, really, really admire. And then their website, I'm like, oh, my website's like a lot better.
Yeah. You're like,
which
really?
is fine
You have
because
like 5 million
they don't need it,
followers.
I guess. That's fine,
It's, what it does though, it opens doors for people to come see your work. And you almost have an obligation, I think. If you are good at something, you have a skill set, you want to share something with the world, you have a kind of an obligation to share it with the world. And so many people hide.
Well, I think your soul that's where the obligation comes from. That's the reason that it's there, right? Sorry, so many people hide.
And I got so much pushback, Tricia, from some people that I knew when I started this path. Like, you can't do it that way. You're too big now. You just, that's not how we do it. Like, all of this energy, for sure. And I just had to stick with what was true for me. And some of us, if you're a teacher, some teachers, your life's mission is you work in small groups or you work one-on-one with people, and that's amazing. Some teachers, they work with medium-sized groups. Some teachers work with huge groups, and some all of the above.
Yeah.
And I think as you're on your path to becoming a healer or a teacher, you find that out for yourself too.
Right.
Like, what kind of groups, what kind of people do you want to teach, do you attract to? So everyone is different. So to say like you shouldn't teach that many people or you shouldn't teach in that way, that's weird. That's ridiculous to me, honestly.
Of course,
like,
yeah.
You have to let that go and just be like, what is true for you? I had this one guest on my podcast, Sarah Blondin, and if you listen to the Insight Timer meditation app, which is a great app, she's their biggest teacher on there, and I love her. She's so sweet, and she lives in the forest with her family in Canada, and she would write she was like a journalist, and she would write, and then she recorded them into meditations, and she just put them on the internet, and they just exploded, like millions of people. You like say her name to some people, they're like, I'm crying, you just said her name.
Oh.
and it was just like, that was her karma and her calling. And I think like Eckhart Tolle too, obviously, when he wrote that book, he probably wasn't like, every person who's ever meditated on the planet is going to read this, but that's his calling to teach a lot of people, and obviously yours as well. You look at this amazing podcast and all this work that you've created, right?
Very sweet.
So we have to own that in ourselves, because if we don't, we're doing everyone a disservice, and then they're going to learn that from you. So it's great to be seen, and then you have to be able to show yourself.
Yeah.
So step one is you get seen. Maybe someone validates you and is like, hey, you could do this. And then you have to learn the skill sets to share yourself with the world. And I don't mean to say that just like in business. Like maybe your goal is relationships. And I've done thousands of relationship readings. And maybe somebody sees you for who you are, helps you with that, and then your job is to get out there and show yourself to create a relationship. It could, or with your kids. Maybe you've been hiding from your family. So in one way or another, we all have to be seen and then show ourselves.
So that fear of exposure, though, that's the thing. You know, the fear of, for me, being like how I lean, being very empathic and everything. My fear of exposure was to see the ugly side of humans, like not because it actually hurts my feelings when they say, you know, you're a devil and, you know, you're going to hell or like you're fat, because those are the kinds of ridiculous comments you get. Yeah, but it doesn't, like those things don't actually scare me or hurt my feelings. Good. But it's for me, and I don't have it this way anymore. It used to be just seeing that that pain in those people existed in the world, and that. So
you would feel that pain.
I would vibrate to it. Yeah, I would vibrate to it, and not understand. Yes, I'd match it, not understanding how to But there are people who are literally just afraid of judgment. So I've never really had that much fear of judgment. And that's what a lot of shyness is about.
It's the fear of pain that you would feel.
Mine was like, as I saw someone else in pain. That was mine. Like, it was more about exposing myself to everyone else, I'm realizing.
This is my most asked question in spiritual training. So I do intuitive training as well. And this is the most asked question, which is like, I can feel everybody else's pain.
Yeah, of course.
And so I don't want to leave the house. I want to hide. I can't handle relationships, whatever level you're experiencing it at. And that is a spiritual ability that's just gone wrong.
It's malfunctioning. That's what I say. It's basically like having, the way I always characterize it is, it's like having an autoimmune disease of your emotional body, because the autoimmune system is supposed to be healing you. And when you have a disease in the autoimmune system, it's attacking itself. And so that's what's happening. It's the fundamental desire to understand oneness and understand unity, but it's reaching out and finding the pain and thinking that you alone can transmute it.
I think that exactly right. And we're on a planet where there's still a ton of pain.
Yes.
We think we're so advanced, but like literally you go back a few hundred years or 1,000 years and you're like, we're cave people.
We do not evolve very fast.
No. And so there's a ton of pain on the planet. And to be an empath is one of the most beautiful abilities that there is. Could you imagine not being able to feel other people? Like,
no,
isolating them.
And that's what actually opened that part of my spiritual awakening around like intuitive abilities specifically, was understanding that function of being an empath. And I didn't realize that wasn't how the rest of the world was. And I literally had to sit down with my husband. I was like...
You don't feel that?
I was like, so I knew he could feel me because I could feel him feeling me. So I was like, you know how you can feel what I'm feeling even though, he's like, yeah. And I was like, okay, I do that with everybody in the world. And he's like, what? That's horrible.
Trish, you're only supposed to do it with me, Tricia.
You're only supposed to feel me. So I didn't realize that. And I think that's kind of an awakening to people. Yeah. But that's typical, whatever your leanings are. We just assume. That's why everybody is kind of in their world.
And I think a lot of empaths, they lean towards spirituality and healing work in particular, this kind of healing work that you do, because they're looking for answers. And traditional, I think, medicine and psychology doesn't really have all those answers. I've had so many clients of mine who are therapists who just absorb the shit out of all of the pain that their clients bring in, and they don't know how to deal with it energetically. So it's an amazing gift if you know how to use it mechanically correctly. And then the deeper part, we could teach the mechanics of how to do that, but then the deeper part of that is some people just have their own personal pain that triggers when they're around other people. So if you have a match with somebody, so somebody has abuse and you have abuse, you're more likely to probably feel what they're going through and take it personally. And a lot of people don't realize, I hope you're listening to this part, that a lot of the feelings and the thoughts that you have aren't even yours. And so we feel so invalidated when we feel like shit, like we wake up feeling bad, or if we have negative thought patterns that we can't get rid of. But my invitation to all of you listening is that a lot of that noise and feeling isn't even yours. You're picking it up from the world. And actually what's yours feels good, even if it's your own pain and sadness in some way.
It becomes cathartic. And the feeling of catharsis feels good.
Yeah.
Right. It's when I'm talking to empaths, trying to help them to turn that function the right way, is that if you do pick up something from someone else and you do that tool of, is it mine, just to see it, I'm like, sometimes if you've stayed with it and you've matched it, it's going to find something in you and it becomes yours. So it doesn't even matter that you got it from somewhere else. It's time to go deeper into yours.
And there's obviously a doorway that opened to allow it in.
Yes.
So what is your match with that other person? And usually we get the angriest at the people who have the most matches with, because they light us up and upset us, and then we blame them instead of working through our stuff, and then they don't affect us. Which is obviously a long arc of, it's so easy for me to say, just don't let it affect you. You're fine. It's
stop it. Just stop it.
Just if you're listening or watching, just stop.
That's it.
Yeah,
spiritual awakening. Poof.
Yeah.
Stop it.
The cat. I do what I want.
But how do you talk to people about when it is fear of judgment, of exposing themselves, whether it's professionally or personal ways?
That's a great question. So I think fear of judgment is a level of you're afraid of invalidation, or you already have invalidation and it's just pressing those buttons. And for a lot of us, it has to do with our upbringing. So for me, like I grew up in New Jersey, everyone's an engineer or a businessman, and so, or woman. And so for me, it's like to do, Mom, Dad, I'm going to school for magic. You know, I'm sure they're, you know, you can imagine the reaction.
Yeah. Oh, you can have magic money in the bank?
My money is just, can you send some?
If you can send some.
My grandfather calls me, I love him to death, and he's like, David, well, how are you? And I'm like, great, Grandpa, guess what? Like, a gazillion people listen to my meditation. And he's like, when are you going to get a real job? I'm like, oh, man. It's no, you know, so some of us, it's just our upbringing. We're like, we're afraid of the people who know us or have known us in a certain light to change and then getting that judgment. For others, it's that fear of being seen and being invalidated. But what I would say is there's nothing better than rejection. Because it'll just, I have a master's degree in rejection in relationships and business and in all forms of life. And there's literally nothing more awkward on this planet than a psychic in training. Could you imagine just like, I think I see, nope, that's wrong.
Yeah.
Well, sorry. Awkward. You know how many thousands of readings I had to do to get over that?
Oh my gosh.
And I'm sure, I mean, nobody knows better than you. But like, how do I know if what I'm seeing is true? How do I know if what I'm feeling is right?
And it's such the perfect model of the way out is through, because you can't stop speaking it. Because like for me, there's this one pivotal reading, mediumship reading, where I was like, your mom? And she's like, yeah, my mom's in spirit. And I was like, okay. And I hear a name clairaudiently, and I'm like,
cool.
I'm not going to say that. That's a dumb name. Like literally, that's what I thought. And so I changed it, and I was like, Barbara, and she's like, no, not Barbara. And I was like, well, I might as well say the stupid name. I was like, Bertha, and she's like, that's her name.
Oh my God.
But you see, the way out is through, and
yeah, my favorite poet, Robert Frost, one of my favorite poets, he says the only way around is through. That's on the bottom of every email I send.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Because it's so true.
Yeah.
Whether it's through invalidation, through awkwardness, through shame, through guilt, through fear, that is the only way around is through, which sucks because it's uncomfortable.
Well, that's why I think training settings are good, because they give you the freedom. You're not actually taking we're wrapping it all in together. You're not taking someone's money yet, but you are doing an energetic exchange. It's a safe place to actually practice. And so the only thing that's on the line is your pride, but we have to be able to become desensitized to our pride if we're going to be in service, I would say.
There's no way around it. You have to. You know, like my training, I did a gazillion readings for free, and that's just how I learned. And you know what? I never thought in a million years I could do a reading. Like I wasn't like 5 years old, and I was like, I see a ghost. That mountain's gonna have an earthquake. They're like, no, that wasn't.
That is more to and that. Thank you for saying that, because a lot of people are held back from pursuing what they feel in their heart because they hear other people's stories about, well, when I was a kid, Grandpa sat on my bed, and then the next morning, Mom said Grandpa died, all that kind of stuff. That has more to do with your personality than your facility or natural ability to be intuitive. And the reason I think it has more to do with your personality is that you subconsciously have those filters off, but you can consciously take those filters off at any time. Does that make sense?
It does. You know who are the worst people to train as psychics? I've trained a lot of intuitives, like very, very sensitive, uber spiritual people who see everything.
Oh yeah,
because they're so hard to rein in, and they tend to be ungrounded sometimes.
Oh yeah,
and I've actually found like people who come out the best out of these trainings are like just like medium level of ability, but just a lot of drive, kind of relatively grounded. You don't have to be like a superstar seeing every subtle thing in the ethers to do this. By no means is that true. I think that is one of the biggest fallacies there is out there around this intuitive and healing work, is that you have to have some natural ability you're born with, and everyone you touch heals, and then you could do it. Like, no, the opposite is true. Like, if you're a normal person, you have any spiritual inclination, and you just want to grow, you're going to do amazing if you put your mind to it. So if you're listening to this and you've had that thought, like, no, you don't have to be. And if you are really, really psychic and you're just like, what about me? No, invalidating me. It's good too. You just need to rein in your energy and be more grounded and do it in a healthy way. I remember once I taught this workshop, and I'll be so vague about some of the details, but essentially one of the people in the audience asked me, can you come give me an intuitive reading at my work? I was like, okay. And she gave me the address, and I show up, and it's a psychic shop.
Oh,
it's like you know, the
at my
crystal
job,
ball, the whole thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
at her job.
Yeah.
And I've never been in one of those in my entire life, ever. Never been inside.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Wait, you mean like with the neon hand and everything?
The hand, the whole thing.
Amazing.
I've never been inside.
One of those old school ones.
Yeah. So I go in, and she takes me into her office where she does her readings. And she was like, I would like a reading. So I was like, oh, this is intimidating.
Yeah.
All right. So, you know, me, I wear like shirts from Ross, and I don't have the crystals. Just like, I don't have it. And so I sit down and I start reading her. I was like, you look like you've got some issues around money, like you don't have enough money. And she's like, yeah. And I was like, and single, right? And she's like, single. I was like, honestly, all I see is that you need a boyfriend and a job. And she was so validated. She was like, that's all I want. I want an effing boyfriend, and I want a job, like with like stable income. Because this whole like reading in here is like up and down. And she was just so validated.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah. and I was like, all right, we're done. We're done here. So go get out there.
Well, you know what I say actually just came through again with, I was online the other day, and what really it is we're just loving each other. And then the talents, the abilities are symptoms of it. So the psychic who automatically has all those channels turned on and is like seeing everything still needs to learn how to just love someone and put the wonders, the facilities, the things that they're seeing in line with the love. Yeah. And sometimes that's, I don't know, maybe that can be challenging, more challenging.
Do it for another reason, because you're going to end up in a bad place.
Yeah, because you can see the realms of non-physical.
The best
for
is
non-living
when two
reasons.
intuitive people get in a fight, and one of them's like, you're ungrounded, and the other person's like, you're channeling something else, and they have this like whole like, you have no boundaries, and they just like use their spiritual tools to beat each other up over the head.
Oh my gosh, you have to bring that on to Enlightened AF. So, you guys, do you know I have another podcast? It's called Enlightened AF. So we'll talk about it later. But David's going to come on. That's, I love that.
So I've been guilty of that for sure.
I have a
weaponizing spirituality.
Weaponized. Okay, I just have to mention one thing that a friend, I hope, well, nobody knows this except for me. It's a private conversation, but two spiritual people having like a disagreement, and one of them called the other one a spiritual sniper. And my friend was like, that's my new rapper name.
I love spiritual sniper. I love that.
And then I said, oh, I know what I said, because there was a lot of, like the next week, I was like trying to some people management, and somebody was giving me rubbing me the wrong way or something. And I was like, okay, I know this new moon energy is really enhancing. I think it was in Capricorn, and I have, that's right. It was in Capricorn, full moon. I can't remember. And I have a Capricorn moon. I was like, okay, so I know the Cappy moon is making me emotionally litigious. So you're going to have to proofread this. And she's like, emotionally litigious is your rapper name.
Was that you?
Nope. No. Isn't she such a spiritual sniper though?
She is. She just throws so much energy.
Yeah.
So I've been guilty of it. I've been in relationships
of course.
where we're both guilty of it. Mm-hmm. And if you don't want to express your emotions in that way. Yeah. You want to be as human as possible. And
it's just taking those words that are just the mythology, is one of your most favorite podcast guests. I was telling you. Yeah, talking about the mythology.
Dev Patnaik, if I can say his name right. I spent years watching this guy's podcast because I lived in India, and it was
he has a podcast. His TED Talk. Yeah.
Excuse me. Mm-hmm. He does have a podcast, and on his TED Talk, he talks about Alexander the Great coming to India, attempting to take India over, conquer it, and meeting a yogi. And I love this story. It's the East meets the West in the ultimate way, and it kind of wraps around back to where we started around spiritual business. Mm-hmm. And essentially, he fantasized about what their conversation was like. So Alexander the Great meets this naked yogi sitting on a rock, and he's like, "What are you doing? What are you doing with your life?" And the yogi says, "I'm focusing on nothingness." Mm-hmm. And Alexander's like, "What a waste of a life." And the yogi's like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "I'm going to conquer the world." And the yogi's
everything in this.
Dumbass. Yeah, he's like, "What a waste of a life. Now you're just reborn over and over. You don't keep any of it. You're going to create all that karma." And so I think they laugh at each other and just like, what if, you're so silly.
Yeah.
And that's the East meeting the West. And I think it's the two parts of us meeting each other. The part of us that's introspective and wants to have enlightenment and know who we are. And then the part that wants to conquer the world and create something and be in the world. So I don't think anybody, if you're watching YouTube or listening to this podcast, you're sitting naked on a rock. I mean, you could be. Hi.
With the computer somehow.
Weird. But that's fine. But most of us, we have to pay for that computer. We have to live in the world. We have to feed our families. We want to get on a plane and go on a vacation, or, go explore another country, or feed the poor, help people. So in one way or another, we have to be in the world. And to do that, we have to bring some kind of value in to the world so that we get something back. And so that, for me, is the Alexander side, that Western side. And that side is very unbalanced, obviously, in our society, where the only thing that matters is what's made of matter. We're just obsessed materially. We all kind of know that already. And then, but a lot of you listening, if you're on this, you might be on the spiritual end of the spectrum, where like the matter doesn't matter anymore. Now only the spiritual matters. And you could also be imbalanced in that way. And I was for a long time living in an ashram, without any money. Like, I don't need any money or to do anything or have a job. I'm enlightened. It's so easy when you're not doing anything. And bringing those two parts of us together, synthesizing them, kind of like what you said to me before we started the show, synthesizing them, and then birthing something new. And I was joking with you two about this earlier. Elon Musk's ex-wife, Jennifer Musk, she has this great line where she says, you have to take two great ideas and have them have idea sex and birth an idea baby. And that's that third thing. And like each of us, we are that third thing.
Yeah.
We are our mothers and our fathers, and we're that third thing. And then again, we have to find our spiritual essence and the material essence, and then birth the third thing.
And literally the way that so in a life between life trance that I've had a few downloads about this, but talking about the life before life experience and seeing that it is like the infinite part of the self that starts to create, or source energy that starts to create something more defined. So that would be like this vortex of energy that is the soul. And then that actually connects with the vortex of the materials of this star, the earth. And so the physical and non-physical do create you.
Absolutely.
And it's like the infinite part of yourself would be the naked yogi, having a finite part, having a finite experience, which would be Alexander the Great. And they're both valid.
Both valid.
Yeah.
And if you ask a materialist how the world works, they'll tell you first there was the Big Bang and everything is made of matter, and then an evolution comes and we finally get to these brains, and then these brains have thoughts. Those thoughts have ideas, concepts, principles, and they're very etheric.
And they're chemicals.
They're chemicals, and they're less real. There's this innate programming in us in Western society that what's ephemeral is less real than what's material. And inside of that programming is really the deep belief that what's made of matter matters more than what's not. So that would but logically bring you to the conclusion that love is worth less than matter because it's not physical.
It's not physical. But this is more Western.
This is the Western.
And then more Eastern imbalanced would be that none of this matters. It's only what you're thinking, feeling, and
Yes. Even what you're thinking and feeling on the very extreme end of that spectrum is Maya or is illusion, and it doesn't matter
because it's formed and it's in a manner of speaking. It's also formed, so it's nothing.
Yes, and I think that you have to find your own truth in all of that and where you are on that spectrum at any given time, and it's like a dance and a balance between the two.
Yeah.
So yes, I just love that. For me, I have a degree in philosophy, so for me, what mattered was thoughts and ideas and concepts.
I love philosophy too, and I have a friend who was a philosophy major, and he drives me crazy because all he wants to do is wander. He never wants to stay anywhere, and like just and take and marvel at least just that.
Yes,
he's just like but every single thing is but.
So an issue that I have with
exhausting.
Western philosophy is that everything is an argument.
He's definitely more Western, right? Yes. Exactly. So he wants to argue all the time, and he's an activist as well with his kind of. A very negative activist with his political expression.
I used to work in the philosophy library at Rutgers University, and
I don't know. He's 75. Like all of these things that he's done. This is what a spiritual life looks like. You're 75. You've done everything, and you look like this.
It's moisturizer. Can't tell.
Coconut oil.
Coconut oil. I got it in India. So I worked in the philosophy. I also worked in Washington, D.C. in politics. So that's a whole other thing. So I worked in the philosophy library, and I thought I loved philosophy, and I would open all these books, and I would just be like, they were impossible to read. Modern philosophy is so difficult to read, and it's so parsing hairs. It was insane to me. Just excruciatingly painful and not sexy in any way. They kind of leave some of the bigger concepts behind, the unanswerable ones. And in philosophy, they call consciousness the hard problem. I'm like, what can be less hard than consciousness?
Than just being.
The only thing that has no hardness. And they call it the hard problem because naturally in the West, everything, if you're materialist, it has to be made of something. And obviously for them, the consciousness is made of neurons and firing, and maybe it is, but just the way they see it is it's a hard problem and this unanswerable one. And from the Eastern perspective, it's like that is the core of everything is consciousness. It's what makes everything. So in the West, matter makes everything, and in the East, consciousness is what forms everything. Because if there's no awareness, then there is nothing. You have nothing if you're not aware. And I think a lot of ancient shamans will see life this way, that like everything has consciousness. The table, the lights,
that's how I
our
see it.
Bodies,
Yeah.
Everything. And that's so hard for people to believe that are brought up in the West. And I would say, don't believe it. Like, you have to have your own experiences. So Olivia's going to guide us through an ayahuasca journey where we're going to have that experience.
I don't do. See, I've never done it. I've never done it either because I'm already white knuckling this reality. So
Exactly.
I'm trying. No,
Tricia's holding on.
Yeah. I'm trying to not see the fairies right now so I can focus on you.
That's right.
Literally, I had that conversation with someone when I was like 21 when she was talking about her mushroom experience. And she was like, and then I saw these fairies and gnomes. I was like, hold up. Nope. I'm trying to not see those right now. But it was also because I was afraid. But yeah, no, literally, I do work with elementals or with nature spirits.
That's amazing. One of my first ever readings, Tricia, this woman sat in front of me. She's like, give me a reading. And I was like scared, and I did. And I said, I see a fairy. And that was very awkward for me to say.
Did you see it like a cartoon kind of figure? Because that's what you knew fairies to be?
More of just like a fairy, I guess, just like an image.
Okay.
Yeah, and I had this Western degree in philosophy. It was this very serious spiritual training in India. Vedanta.
You just thought it was a symbol, though? You didn't know that fairies were...
I was like, I wasn't sure.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, I just see a fairy. I don't even know what to make of it, but I just want to share that with you. That was the only time I've said that, probably in 1,000 readings. And she literally, this is awkward, she unbuttons her shirt. And I'm like, oh, this is happening. And she opens it, and on her chest is a big fairy tattoo. Just like right on just one tattoo, big ass fairy on the center of her chest. And I was like, oh, that was so validating.
Wow, cool.
I didn't know what it was yet.
And right there on her heart,
Right on
too.
her heart.
Mm-hmm.
Right on her heart. So her fairy came in pretty strong, and to me as well.
When I was first getting readings, because I didn't actually even get psychic readings for the first 30 something years of my life. And they kept seeing leprechauns with me. And every time they would be like, I see a leprechaun. I don't know what that means. And they were all confused by it. But when I finally integrated my leprechaun, then people stopped seeing it.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love Joseph Campbell, and I love all of his work. If you haven't experienced it yet, you should read Hero with 1,000 Faces and some of his other work. And he is just so good at helping people understand their personal mythologies. And we all have elementals, animal guides, symbols that mean something to us. And in intuitive reading, we tap into some of those. And that's not something you're going to get in a lot of places. Like, wow, that phoenix rising from the ashes, that is very special to me in particular, or that wolf guide. And as areas that can sound, a lot of ancient cultures in the world, that is how they guided themselves through time with these signposts and guides. And so, I don't know, I invite you to, if you're in a little resistance to that, just explore it a little bit and see. Maybe there's a symbol, a guide, a mythological energy that is helping you in some way.
Because everything is, well, again, back to that apex of what's real and not real, or more real than another realness. You know what I mean? It's all real, and you can't, to quote Daryl Anka, who channels Bashar, he says, you cannot imagine a non-reality. So all that you imagine is a reality.
I love that. Thank you. Thank you, everyone who channels. I'm so good at that. I'm like, come in, and then it's crickets.
You don't channel? You probably channel during readings, though, right?
I don't.
You don't?
Purpose.
You just,
On
oh, okay.
purpose.
I gotcha.
Unless we have a training where you channel on purpose. But the way that we train our intuitives is to not channel, so that you're getting your information and their information. So, and then when you get more advanced, then you can channel, because a lot of times what happens is when somebody is a beginner, they just open. And then
yeah,
all
totally
these
agree.
entities and energies come through, and then their eyes turn funny, and then they're very ungrounded.
Yes.
And I've seen it happen too many times. So the way I train people is you actually, everyone's channeling
Of
something.
course.
You walk into a room, you start channeling the other people.
Yes,
So
yes.
we're all channeling all the
It's
time.
not that big of a deal. It just has to do with the degree of which you are, you are kind of tapping into that energy and letting it flow through you.
Yeah, exactly.
Readings are a channeling, but when you're kind of just letting it go through you really strongly, like turning the faucet all the way on.
Yeah, and so what I do when I read is I do my best to really just be asking this person's higher self, what is in their best interest.
Yeah.
So I'm not telling you what you want to hear or what you want to know about your future, just whatever your higher self is showing me.
Right.
And the more I can stay in my body and be me, the more permission there's going to be for you to be in your body and be you. Because the goal here, Jesus already knows what Jesus knows, all right? So does the Buddha. Like, they went through their process. The goal is you to go through your process. And that, Tricia, was huge for me, because when I lived in India, I had a pocket full of pictures of gurus. And I would go to every guru there was in the Himalayas, and I would just say, you know more than me. And I would just give my power away. And it was always, they knew more than me. And then the same thing happens with people in channeling. Like, if I bring in Jesus, or if I bring in, Saint Germain, Saint Germain knows more than I'll ever know. He's Saint Germain. I'm just a human. And then we devalue ourselves and what our higher selves wants to show us. And then we're actually not on our path, even though we're channeling great spiritual information.
But see, sometimes what I channel is their higher self, I think. It's more like just like a sliver of energy. You know what I mean? It starts to come through, and then it's just charged up with emotion, and then it comes out really fluidly, like singing a song.
So I think, and I think there's more than one way to channel in the mechanics of it. So when I say channel, I mean you're bringing another energy down through your body. And again, we have a 5-year training program to do that. So I'm not by any means against that.
I know.
Yeah, it's that just in the beginning stages, I find we teach
I agree with that,
to not do that until it feels safe. Absolutely. And then you can channel everything, and then it's like, whoa, I have access to everything? Like, everything?
You could channel a rock? You can.
Rock? Everything. You don't need ayahuasca.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so for me, it was like I would go to all these gurus, I would give my power away. Everyone always knew better than I did. And then the same coming back to business and letting yourself be seen in the world. Like, what do I have to offer that's unique? Why would I have a podcast? Why would I teach? Why would I share? Jesus already did, or whoever else knows better.
Jesus had an awesome podcast.
He had a great podcast, JC's podcast every Sunday morning.
Sunday morning.
That's right. So I'm like, hey, I'm a Jewish teacher too. All right. So life wants you to grow into your potential and share that potential with the world.
Oh my gosh! Speaking of who was this? So weird. I did something came through in channel. Oh, it was Metatron actually. I was doing a group meditation live, but also recording it. And there was a portion of Metatron actually channeling part of the guidance. And it's kind of reminding me one thing that was said in that was, you are the one condition that completes unconditional love. Because without you, does that make sense?
Absolutely.
And that's kind of like what you're saying. Like, what do I have to give? What do I have to give? You have you to give, and we need it.
So from the very spiritual end of the perspective of that, it's like, yes, exactly what you just said. And then on a very human level, people will be going through shame, guilt, abuse, and then they grow up to be adults, and then they're like, I can't love myself. And then from that end, like, can you love yourself from the very human side as well? So can we love ourselves from the soul side, from the spiritual side, and from the human side? And no matter where you're coming from, it's always that same kind of dynamic of that play between matter and spirit. And can you bring in both? And some people are super grounded and they need to bring in the spiritual. And
Right,
some
'cause
people are
they're too
super
dense,
spiritual,
yeah.
and they need to bring in more of the grounded.
Right.
And like that lady who wanted a boyfriend and
And a job and a job.
And a job.
Get rid of the psychic shop, dude.
Yeah, which is cool too.
Totally,
if
yeah.
if that's your jam.
That's really awesome. We are pretty much out of time. Kurt's letting us go a little longer. But but I want folks to know: are you
Sure.
teaching intuitive courses right now? How to
Yes.
master your spiritual abilities?
Yeah. So if you go to energymatterspodcast.com, we have a free thing, like 30-minute class on mastering your spiritual abilities. I do have an intuitive training course going on, but we're pretty deep in it.
Okay.
I may start another one in the future. I'm not sure when yet.
Okay.
And then I have courses and free stuff on like healing from heartbreak, because that's something I've had a lot of experience with, on releasing anxiety. I have a year-long meditation program called Grounded Mind. And I'm going to be teaching some entrepreneurship. So,
And that can all be found on Energy Matters Podcast as well as your website?
Yeah, davidgandelman.com is where most of it is.
We'll make sure we put both energymatterspodcast.com and davidgandelman.com. Is that okay? We'll put all of those links. We'll put them all in the show
Mom, I have a
description.
website. It's my name.
Proud of it.
That's right.
Is there anything else you would like to
Yeah.
say?
There was something coming through while you were talking, Tricia, that I've never shared before, but I think I would like to share. And it's funny. I podcast so much and I teach, and I rarely share like the deep spiritual end of things. It's just unless I'm in class with the group that's in agreement to that, I don't know why. But I would like to share. I've done many thousands of readings, and when I start every reading that I do, I look at somebody as a soul, their essence in a body. And some people are very in their body, some people are floating around. I have to pull them down. But what I look at is like, where did they come from? And some people, they've been on this earth for a long, long time, over and over and over, and they're earth people, very much so. And other people, it's like their first or second rodeo, and they feel so alienated. Alienated, like love relationships don't work for them. Finances don't work. They feel just awkward in the world and alone and isolated. And something I've definitely dealt with, loneliness. They feel this like isolation and loneliness. And like I'll see some souls are like, they're from a certain star system that's just like really creative, and they're just like artists, and they don't get this whole human thing about making money and like having a job. And others, they come from a system where there's not really love. And they're like their sole purpose to be on earth is to learn about love, like what is human love? What is that experience like? And some are coming to heal, and some are coming to teach. And oddly enough, this ties into the entrepreneurship thing. It's like, why are you here? What are you here to heal? What are you here to do? What are you here to share? And I love how Joseph Campbell, he has this hero's journey where you're living this regular life. There's a call to the forest, you hear something, you go out there, you go through the dark night of the soul, you go through some shit, Life, usually in the human sense, we find pain, heartbreak, loss, and then we come out the other side having learned something, and we want to share what we learned with the world in some way. And I think all of us as souls, if you're listening to a show like this, you're probably on the latter end of that, where you're like, all right, I've been through a lot, I'm healing, what is it that I want to share with the world? And I invite you, just because everyone wants you to be an accountant or an engineer or whatever, teacher, all that stuff is good and fine and maybe your path, but you want to really sit and find out, like, who am I? What's my essence? And what am I here to bring into the world to share with everybody so that they can heal, that I can heal, and I can live my purpose? And that sometimes is ephemeral. It's not so easy to grasp. It's like catching a fairy. Catch your fairy is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Find that for yourself.
Your fairy.
And if you can't find it, find some healers to help you find it.
Yes.
I work with
to
healers
reflect
all
that.
the time to keep my energy like in balance.
Yeah.
We all need help. Some of us more than others, but we all need help. So don't invalidate yourself if you're not there yet. Just keep going. And the same in business, because when I started the first time, I know I'm going long, I'll finish. The first time I ever shot a video, Tricia, I put up the camera and I was on a ladder and I had this clear thought, I'll never be as good as my teacher. And when I had that thought, I fell, everything collapsed, the camera hit me in the head, I had a huge welt and I couldn't shoot for days.
Oh no.
And I thought, you know what, I'm quitting. I'm never going to do this. I'm never going to do this. And then I was like, no, I'm going to do this. And I just kept going, mistake after mistake. I made so many mistakes. Oh my God, I made mistakes, like money mistakes, business mistakes, life mistakes. And I just kept going. And one day, I looked online, I'm on this one app, I had hundreds of thousands of people listening to me, thousands of messages coming in, like business was going well. And I was like, looking back, I was like, oh my God, if I had stopped when that camera had hit me in the head, what a waste of a life this would have been. And for all of you listening, don't let that camera, your camera hitting you on the head, whatever it is, stop you. Even if that's a breakup, someone dying, not having money, whatever it is, don't let that invalidate you. Keep going. I promise you, if you do, there's something on the other side. So that is, I think, what I would like to finish with.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm not particularly good at anything. I'll persistent as hell. I'll run through a brick wall over and over. So same with my intuitive training. I was not super talented in any way. I just was persistent. So
amazing. Well, everyone, David Gandelman, Energy Matters Podcast. And wow, really awesome. Thank you so much. And
Thanks
I hope
for
you'll come
having me.
back. You're going to be on Inline AF.
Would love to.
And yeah, just amazing. Thank you so much for shining your light here with us today.
Thank you.
And everyone, thank you for tuning in. And I will see you next time. Again, thanks for tuning in. I love you, whoever you are.